Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my poetry collection review for National Poetry Month in April 2026. I'm not quite sure I can say this is an official review, but I am looking at this collection that I just read. This is Requiem and Other Poems by Aharon Shabtai. It's also translated from the Hebrew by Peter Cole. And this is my first time reviewing a translation of poetry as well. But I guess it might be more technically of a overview of this collection and my thoughts and a bit more information about it. To start with a bit of a biography of the poet, Aharon Shabtai was born in 1939 and grew up in Tel Aviv and on kibbutz Merhavia. He's written 23 volumes of poetry and is a well-known translator of Greek dramas into Hebrew. He teaches literature at Tel Aviv University. Both his brother and nephew are novelists, and his late wife was a columnist and political activist on the left. Shabtai is known as an outspoken critic regarding Israel's treatment of Palestinians. He published 2 other poetry collections in translation with A New Directions, which is the publisher of this one as well, and one of the collections, JAQs, received the Penn Translation Prize. Peter Cole is Shabtai's translator to English. He gives an introduction to this newest collection, and I thought I'd focus on his commentary regarding the longest poem in the book, the titular Requiem. As Peter Cole writes in the intro, it unfurls the most minimal and mythic of plots. A dog is barking all afternoon and keeping the octogenarian poet from napping or from numbness, calling him, it seems, to join or remember the dead of his Tel Aviv childhood. There are 113 stanzas in all, and they all look a bit like this. They're with these short and choppy stanzas. Some of them give brief biographies to Shabtai's family and to his neighbors. Others show the similarities and differences between today's world and that of the British Mandate of Palestine. So I thought I'd start by reading stanza 72, which is about British soldiers. It starts with, "A drop of blood is left on the tile by the British soldier, wearing the red beret, who was scratched when they came in to take father and mother to the lockup during the great curfew. They stole a tin of father's stamps from the cupboard. And today we'll stay with grandmother." So to me, this is sort of a sad reality about how things stay the same, and there is, after all, a different occupation going on now in the West Bank especially, and it sort of mirrors the way, I think, the way the British might have treated the Jews of the Mandate of Palestine at that time versus how the IDF might be treating some Palestinians in the West Bank. Stanza 75 is about Jews living alongside Arabs, which feels like the thing that is in large part gone away in Israel in today's world, but could be something that would be nice to see again in the future, and this is how Shabtai remembers it. "Isma, Isma," mother calls from the porch to the Arab kids who are shouting, "Sardines!" Below, by the entrance, the hand is raised, holding a stick, and the fish are weighed on scales. I thought that was a bit of a nice remembrance, as is his remembrance of Jewish neighbors that populate through all of these stanzas, like in this one in 77. 5 or 6 steps below ground on Dov Ho Street, as though from Hades, Arya Posner, the plumber, climbs up from the storage room's dark to lift off a cover and open up a blocked sewer pipe across from the hibiscus, next to Kruvi's balcony. So yeah, I like all of these visceral details. So Requiem for Other Poems also won the Poetry Prize in the 2025 National Jewish Book Awards. Here's what the judges had to say about this collection. They say that it's living at the intersection of the magnificent and the mundane. Requiem presents poems that speak directly to the global Jewish experience without allowing that experience to exist in the absence of its necessary assessment. Necessary assessment speaks well to his poetry, particularly when he is covering the aftermath of October 7th. The first poem of this collection is called Tikkun, and it was written 3 days after the massacre. He advises, "Only wisdom of the heart could mend it. Only the surgeon, the doctor, the good teacher, the teachers, the medic, an Arab, a Jew. Only the quiet traveler riding a bicycle, someone carrying a sandwich, walking along a street, someone opening their eyes, someone who speaks with compassion, someone listening, someone learning and wise. Someone waiting and thinking, someone guiding someone down a path of kindness, affection. The painter, the poet, disciples of peace, only the gardeners of peace. That's how it ends. And I love the idea of this collaboration, of people having to work together, having to see each other in collaboration and amongst one another. And it's a reminder to me too that one of the major areas where Jews and Arabs actually do coexist in Israel is in the hospitals. And that, of course, unfortunately, is a major stopping point when it comes to violent conflict. And there the Arabs and Jews are working together, but to extrapolate further, he's giving all of these other ideas of these peacemaking activities where people should work together. Then, on the first year anniversary of October 7th, Shabtai wrote, "Please, Dr. Finkelstein," which is a direct and authoritative poem, almost like a prayer to God. He says, "Dear Dr. Finkelstein, please, please roll up your sleeves, take up your scalpel, and open the state's arteries, the hardened paths to its heart. Remove the blockages so it might brim with truth, understanding, compassion, and sorrow for all the dead who harmed not a soul. Open a window within it to the future to change, so our blood might begin to absorb the oxygen of peace." So I feel like this is certainly a bit of a change from some of the visceral physical imagery, but it's just so arresting, this metaphor about, again, it's about hospitals and doctors in a way, and about repairing what's broken, which in this case is a sense of empathy and a sense of, well, in his case, he's really talking to the Israeli state and saying you have to think about the innocents on the other side. You have to see them as people, and he's adamant about his continued quest for peace, and I think it really grabs your attention in a way somewhat unique to poetry, and really compels people to listen. I really hope it does. It certainly did for me. So the first part of this collection largely addresses October 7th and the state. The second part is Requiem, which is, after all, such a large poem. And then the third part goes into Shabtai confronting his own death, which was a little more hit or miss for me. He talks about himself in third person over and over. It's a bit much to bear for these very small poems. But I do like his poem Oblivion near the end, where the gone items feel a little more tangible. He writes, "Aharon isn't forgotten yet. He's lying quietly in oblivion, but there's a certain someone in a certain place on a certain day reading a poem by Aharon, about a bed in which people are forgotten, about a glass in the kitchen which is empty, then filled with water, then empty again." So yeah, I mean, even though there is that third person reckoning with himself, he is able to remember these sort of tangible images and make metaphors about them in terms of life and death, which spoke to me. Then his final two poems are sort of about opposite sides of an issue. In the first of the poems, which is called Poems Come, he talks about getting rid of the poetry inside of him. He says, "He sends them on from speech to silence. He lets them go so they won't be poems, and they'll pass by and be forgotten when he wants to lie down and rest." Which I guess can be a nice thing regarding not pushing yourself too far, especially when you reach the end of your life, not having to worry too much about all of your output. And yet, at the same time, I guess the final poem, Balance, speaks toward legacy, and legacy is about the poetry he's leaving behind. And he ends it with, "And when it's bad for Aharon, when there's no love and the body's weak and aching, he prepares for death. Aharon will vanish, and there will only be Aharon's poems." For me, apparently, there will be poetry and the sudden onslaught of a vacuum outside my door. I've been doing a lot of thinking on these last two poems, and I think I'm grateful for the two different sides of the issue about how to, reach the end of life. And part of it is to allow yourself, the peace of not continuing to strive and, allowing yourself to reach an end point at last. But also, I like the idea of, holding on to your legacy. because after all, these are the things that you'll be remembered by. Anyway, I think that about covers it for me. Outside, the vacuum is continuing to blare on and reminding me that my own tasks for today in my life are not complete yet, and I gotta get moving on to other things. But I will leave a link to all of these resources about Requiem and other poems down below, as well as my playlist to other reviews I've done of poetry and other books in the past. Expect me back on this channel in the near future with my final AM reading video of April, where I get to wrap up my usual sort of reading, which is usually novel-length fiction and some nonfiction. But I am very grateful that National Poetry Month, I'm using it as my impetus to expand my horizons and to continue to consider this art form. If you're reading any poetry this month, I'd love to hear about it and your thoughts, or any of your thoughts about any of your reading. And thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.